Do you think, Jesse, I asked this question of him at that initial press conference, but starting off against these two teams in your tenure turned out okay, I guess, in the end, right? But Jimmy, is it ideal? Would you rather played against, I don't know, Honduras and Martinique?
What?
Yeah.
No. No. You have to play. Listen, we've been begging for games like this. Begging for games. And we keep playing against the CONCACAF. Okay, it's great, but we need these big games to improve, to get these players experience. We've got them now with World Cup experience. Now they've played Holland, France. Now they're playing Argentina, Chile, Peru. Like, these are the games that we want. And this is the only way that you're going to get better.
What if they had lost 5-0 to France? Would he be saying the same thing?
100%.
Yeah.
Because then you know where you are. So if I'm playing against you, I get beat 5-0. I'm going, Jesus Christ, I've got to work a hell of a lot harder. I thought I was better than what I was. I've just lost to the Dutch 4 or 5-0. And then you start comparing the players that you're playing against. Well, what do they do different? What's their movement like? How do they play? Every pass is crisp. They're more focused. They're more confident when they play. And I thought we were a hell of a lot more confident in possession than we were against the Dutch. And our players ended up finding those little gaps in spaces to get on the ball and play. But that's experience. That teaches you. And as long as you're willing to learn, then you're only going to improve. And I think these games are just going to make these players better and better. And then when they're going to play against a CONCACAF team, then they're going to see the game completely different than what they would have without getting that experience that they just had. It's so valuable.
I'm kind of contradicting myself because I'm saying the underlying performances are way more important, right, across those two matches. But as a player, and then Marsh, you're not just looking at the result. You're not just looking at what we see. You're looking at all of the stats that underlie that as well. You're looking at, the pressing, how successful were they in the counter pressing. You're looking at how compact they were, snuffing out attacks from France. All of those things, right? Like ad nauseum in terms of the detail. And that is what's evaluated for them in terms of what's successful or not. But for a player to have that reinforced by way of a result is a really powerful thing, right? So I don't think you can discount that. So had they lost 3-0, 5-0, whatever, I'm not talking about embarrassment, but you do get that result. You hang with the number 2 team in the world. For the players, that's meaningful. And perhaps it goes a long way to establishing and driving home a lot of these concepts that they're working on. For these players, they go away brimming with confidence, to your point, Jimmy. And so then they take that with them into Copa. So I've effectively contradicted myself, but I think it's the way the performance and the result, though, like really serves to drive all of that home.
Yeah.
And becomes a touchstone.
100%. I think when, for instance, like a Koné, if Koné's playing against a Honduras, Koné in the middle of the park is taking maybe 1, 2, 3 touches, or sorry, 2, 3, 4 touches, whatever it is, because you'll have a bit of time. When you're playing against Holland, you're playing against France, you're more or less playing one touch. And at times when he was getting it, he saw a little gap and he's like, I got to get out of here. I have to get out of this danger area. Mm-hmm. And I've got to drive forward now. So his game is completely changed than what it would have been against a Honduras or a Guatemala. So for me, I loved watching Koné. He really impressed me just because you could see he was growing as the game was being played. And he was realizing, and that's the difference between a smarter player that's out there thinking than one that's just reacting. And Koné was thinking when he was playing.
Yeah, there was a responsiveness to his game, right? And on defensively, he's made so many strides since I last saw him. I watched him a little bit at Watford, but say comparing him to the Koné that was at CF Montreal to the Koné that I saw over the course of these 2 games.
Yeah.
Like defensively, his responsibility, like what he wants to take on, but how he helps to insulate the back line. I was also undecided about, him playing next to Eustáquio. I feel like, Koné's better a little bit higher up the pitch, playing more of like a classic 8. But just defensively, like what he was able to do there was very impressive. But then continually on the ball, the way that he's a big man, and like he seemed to growing into himself physically, is stronger. But like the way that he can just turn on a dime, he's so silky.
Yeah.
And that even surprised You know, the likes of, who is it in there? Camavinga and
Camavinga, yeah.
yeah,
I
like,
mean,
I mean, that's unbelievable.
You think how many times? I mean, I think France had 17 fouls, and the amount of times, and you could see that they were worried when the Canadians got the ball and we were looking to go forward. They were stopping us. And Camavinga must have fouled Kone at least 6-7 times, where Kone was just turning, twisting, and then all of a sudden Camavinga's grabbing him and holding on to him because he couldn't let him go. So that just goes to show you that, you know, when you commit that many fouls, something's up. Like, you're worried about the Canadians going forward. And you're late because our movement was quite good at times, right? But for me, if I'm Kone, if I'm his agent, I'm looking to get him out of Watford ASAP, because I think he needs to get out of that club. One of the reasons, I think, when they've had 4 managers within a year and a half or something, so there's not much stability. Things are always changing. And if I'm Kone as well, looking at it, going, I can compete at this level, I need to move. And there is whispers that Rome and a couple other clubs are watching him. So it'd be interesting to see what's going to happen with him. And if he has a good Copa, he's gone. And Cornelius as well. And like I said, Feyenoord and Ajax are watching him. And I'm sure there's going to be other clubs now watching him, just how composed he is in the back and the way that he can pass and play and read the game. I really like
those
Cornelius.
progressive passes, the way he can get the ball up the pitch and the vision that he has. But isn't there, like, to play devil's advocate for a second, isn't there merit though? Like, I was just talking about the development, the leaps and bounds, and how he's come on since he left MLS. So despite the turnover in terms of the coaching staff and how he's guided and shepherded on in Watford, then obviously there could be more stability, but he's improved. He's developing. So is there also merit to him staying in the championship?
Well, the pace of the championship is incredible, and physical, and it's I think with him, he set his standards and he's got to keep them there. And I think the consistency has been a problem for him because he hasn't always started for Watford. And each manager they change. You're right there. The stability at Watford's never been there since the owners fire managers every week. That's not a good position to be in always. But if he can get that consistency and play like that on a regular basis, then absolutely the sky's the limit for him.
Because you saw how club form and, like, your own personal situation, how many minutes you're getting can affect a player. I think you saw the change, and thankfully we saw Eustáquio and kind of what we expected from him in the second match. I think you saw Eustáquio wearing the armband, and that elevated his performance. And you saw the Eustáquio, I think, that we know we remember and has to be in there to not necessarily drive the attack, but to be a force in the middle of the park. And with the limited minutes that he's seeing at Porto, I think I worry potentially how that affects this side, because they're going to be heavily reliant upon him, aren't they?
They will be. He was unlucky too with hit the bar. Great effort.
He's had a ton going on off the pitch as well, though, the last number of months, right? You know, deaths in the family. You know, he's had a daughter was born. There's a lot going on there in his head. So, you know, I'm sure he's looking forward to a clean slate and a new beginning this season at Porto, and a good Copa will really benefit him. Fonzie looked well, different role it seemed somewhat, Jimmy. More advanced, was cutting inside, was relying more on Miller, you know, out wide. Did you see a big change in his game from the Dutch game?
I did, and I think Frimpong, exposed him quite a bit in that Dutch match. The amount of times that Frimpong ended up getting on that ball and taking him on, and because normally Fonzie can rely on his pace, but when you're playing against a player that's just as quick as you, your game has to change. And I didn't think he adapted too well to Frimpong. Even on the goal that Frimpong gets it out wide and he whips it around them. I mean, when you look at world-class fullbacks, and if you're talking about a Maldini or a Roberto Carlos and these types of defenders, they don't give you that second to cross that ball in. As soon as you get that ball, they're looking to get tight now, and their body is in. When they're closing down, they're stopping the angles from the wide guys crossing the ball, right? Because they're reading it. So if Fonzie on that cross, okay, you're not going to close him, but drop another 2 yards that he can't whip it around you. And he struggles at times with that defending. Yeah, he's fine going forward, but I think he still has some work to do on his defending and 1v1 playing against top players that have just the same pace that he does. I thought it was better in the France game because of Miller's movement. Miller was coming inside. He was finding those little pockets, and it gave Fonzie the runway to go. And that's why you've seen him going further up the pitch, was because of Miller's movement. Miller was very, very, very aware, and his movement was class for me. I thought he just found so much space, just peeling off the defenders, playing on the shoulders of the midfielders. And he was finding great areas to get on the ball and play, which allowed Fonzie to move forward. If Miller just stayed wide, then it doesn't allow that runway for Fonzie to go. So the two of them, I thought they were very good on that left side, their movement and understanding of one another.
He was mixing it up though. Like, he wasn't predictable in the attack, Miller, and he was dictating, in a sense, made it more plain for Fonzie to see. Not that it has to be dumbed down, but when you have a player whose movement is very clear, it makes your job infinitely easier, right? Yeah. So at times Miller was pulling really, really wide, like almost right on that touch line, and then leaving the half spaces for Fonzie to come in, and not necessarily in the offensive third, but in the middle third as well. So that it gave spaces then for David, who I thought was very good. We haven't talked about Jonathan David, but
yeah, he was
that error, I guess you could call it, because Crépeau made very few. But when he makes that sliding save, and then he doesn't claim the ball, he coughs it up, and then the composure that Canada then showed to go right up the spine against France and to break the other way, I thought also spoke volumes about this group, that they weren't going to be flustered on the day. You know, and that was, to me, was like a microcosm of the game, and allowed them to go out and get a result, even though, Sharms, you didn't think that a 0-0 was a result, but
it's not a result.
I think, well, it very much was not a win, but I think an important result for this crew. So that was good. But I think the movement, and when we're talking about Fonzie, and to go back to Fonzie and Miller, I think that's great for Liam Miller. Right? I mean, I think it establishes him in that 11. You know, it doesn't cement him in there. Like, is he a penciled in starter? Who knows? But that's a tick in the pro column for him, to know that he can pair and work really well off of Fonzie. That's something that we haven't really seen, I don't think, in this squad.
That's his best game for Canada by a mile. And I think we've been waiting for that from him for a long time. Had that good year at Basel. Then he went to, was it Preston this past season, right? On loan. Yeah. But I've always liked him as a footballer. He's good. I mean, I've always enjoyed him. But what's that, Dubs?
I said Preston Bellend.
Okay, gotcha. You just love using the term Bellend, don't you? You discovered it on this show as well. If we could give you any gift on this show, it was giving you that.
The gift of Bellend.
Bellend.
So you're welcome.
The gift of the Bellend that just keeps giving and giving.
Yeah. My cheesy puns to go with the Bellend.
But I think we also got to talk about the defensive pairing of Bombito and Cornelius. I think that's our two center backs moving forward.
Yeah, I
was very surprised. I didn't know what to expect, but just seeing their understanding of one another, the way that they played, how aggressive they were in their approach, I thought they were fantastic. And we've been saying that defensively for a while now, that we've struggled, especially at that center back area. But I think these two have got something. 100%.
Sorry, remind me, Jimmy, who would they be displacing? Kamal Miller and
Miller, Victoria, right? It's more of a replacement then. Miller would have been kind of pushed aside a little bit, and Victoria's done. No. Yeah, he's out of the picture now. But Miller's still involved. Yeah,
it's on the bench.
Yeah. No, I just mean he's been starting for us, like with Trinidad, Tobago. He was starting. I mean,
no, he was in Sharpie. He was in Sharpie on that starting 11 for a long time. And he can still get back in there. But Jesse Marsh, you've mentioned in those previous press conferences, Bombito in particular plays a style of football that he likes, right? That aggressive style.
Plus, what a soccer name.
Bombito?
Oh my God, that's
a great name. Yeah,
amazing name.
We should though. I mean, listen, Craig. I mean, yes, really good performance, but we should also talk about the lack of a cutting edge, the lack of perhaps creativity in the final third. Okay, Dutch, France, I get it. Still 0 goals in 2 games, right? And we need to mention, if we're going to celebrate all the positives, we should at least discuss, is that a concern? You have John David, you shouldn't be, you wouldn't think. But I didn't see much in the way of great chances the last 2 games.
Well, I think the win is that for us, I think as a national team, is keeping the ball out of the net. The last 5 matches against outside of CONCACAF teams, we conceded 15 goals. And that's always going to be the problem for us. I think going forward, that's nothing that we really need to worry about, because I think that if they create those chances, and they will, we have top quality, top drawer players playing in the best leagues in the world in our offensive zone, and they will create chances. It's always going to be difficult against those top opposition, but important to keep a clean sheet, keep those opportunities at a minimum, and then you're going to create them in the offensive zone. I don't think there's anything to worry about there for us. It's just making sure that we're solid defensively as a unit. We could do something at this Copa America. I really believe we can. There's optimism there.
Yeah.
Nice to hear an optimistic Craig for us. I'm a big fan.
He just threw us all a curveball there. Dude.
Like,
Nobody knew how to react to that.
happening?
We're like, what?